Gran Canaria, one of the most famous of the Canary Islands, isn't just hotels and beaches. If you look close enough, you can find some nice little adventures along the way. We went there and tried to find some of them, so follow us around while we explore some interesting spots across the island. If you look at a satellite image of the almost circular island, you immediately notice that the north looks much greener than the south. This is actually the case for many of the Canary Islands. The south, with its hot, dry climate, is the place where you can find most of the big hotels and sand beaches. The north, however, can be quite a bit colder and gets more rain, which means there are places where you can have an almost jungle-like experience. We found one of those places, which is called the Azuaje Canyon, or Barranco Azuaje. And our hike there got a little out of control. But let's start at the beginning. And the beginning of this canyon is actually very interesting, because we almost immediately stumbled over this abandoned structure. Hühner. Schon hier abgehauen. Oha, oha. From what I've learned, this used to be a spa hotel, making use of the volcanic spring water in the canyon, which appears to have healing properties. The first hotel was built here in 1868. It was made out of wood, yet this structure here is clearly younger and made of concrete. Nevertheless, it still seems to be abandoned for decades, but you can still see some small rooms, a large bar room and its roof, which was supposed to be a terrace. we ventured deeper into the canyon and discovered a few other buildings, like this one, which likely was used to pump water, maybe even out of the canyon itself to bring water to some fields.
Richtig tief runter ist ein Brunnen oder so. Ja, das ist auch eine Pumpe, glaube ich, da unten.
We've already been hiking multiple hours on the canyon when things started to get a little tricky. The trail was now hard to be recognized as one, and we were actually starting to get lost. Because what we didn't know, just a few days before we arrived, there was a big rainstorm that had washed away parts of the hiking trail. The trail was supposed to lead you out of the canyon and back to higher ground at some point, but we simply missed that. We did have a GPS with us, but due to the inaccuracy down in the canyon, it looked like we were still on the track for a long time. And by the time we realized that, we were so deeply stuck into the canyon that our only way out, before nightfall, was to climb the 20 to 30 meter high muddy wall of the canyon. We don't have much more than a few pictures of that suicide mission, because let me tell you, that was one of the very few moments on my journeys where I honestly got scared and feared to not get out of there in time. But as you can see, we made it out, shaking and weakened, ended up in some private orchard or something, got back on the actual trail, and walked back like we were supposed to do. As we almost made it back to our car, we found yet another abandoned building, again something which seemed to be used to pump water. Next, we still were not tired of adventure, and while trying to not die or get lost this time, we drove from Agaete and Puerto de las Nieves. These are the westernmost towns you can reach with the Gran Canarian highway, through a canyon with a few smaller towns, down to the endpoint at El Sao. From there you can take a very scenic hike up to the Barranco El Sao until you reach a very, very beautiful, almost fantasy-like place called El Hornillo. All the dust you can see in the air down below is, by the way, Sahara sand, carried by the wind over the ocean. To get some contrast to all the hiking in the north, we decided to take the Gran Canarian highway all the way down to the south to Maspalomas. Arguably one of the most famous places in Gran Canaria, because that's where a lot of the, let's call it, classic tourism is happening. And it's famous for the dunes of Maspalomas. That's an area right at the edge of the city and in front of the ocean, covered with sand dunes, where it actually feels a little bit like being in the desert. You can walk along the dunes or have a swim in the nearby sea, although some areas are protected natural sites. Now some honorable mentions where we didn't film that much. One goes out to the picturesque town of Puerto de Mogán, close by Maspalomas. It's small but has a beautiful Venetian flair about it. Near that we also came across this abandoned driveway leading up to a nice small beach. It seems like there was some kind of hotel or resort planned here, but never built. Back in the west, in Agaete, some kilometers south of that, you can find the Charco Azul, a beautiful little waterfall with a scenic hike leading up to it. Our last trip leads us deep into the mountainous heart of the island. Driving through beautiful pine forests and visiting the famous Roque Nublo. It's a well-known landmark of Gran Canaria and one of its highest peaks, around 1.8 kilometers above sea level. The mountain itself and the surrounding area are a great spot for hiking. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed our short but adventurous journey across Gran Canaria. Maybe you found some inspiration for your own travels on this video. There is another video about Tenerife and La Palma on my channel. Feel free to check that out and also consider subscribing or giving me a like. It really helps me out. Thank you and see you on the next one.